Many famous musicians go absolutely bankrupt, and we're going to help you guys avoid that in today's video. What's up, guys? This is Omari with No Nonsense Music Marketing, the #1 place for music business and industry advice online. If you are a serious musician, you want to click that subscribe button because we go over key information every day on this channel. Today, we're going over some unfortunate stories, and we're going to see what we can learn from them about musicians who went broke. So there's too many examples for this. This happens in entertainment, sports, music, too many times. And I believe a lot of this is just from, sometimes it's too young of a person getting in too much money, but it can also be that nobody was taught financial independence. They didn't have a good example of that growing up. And there's a lot more resources happening today where people can get financially educated. There's not one way to do it. There's a lot of good principles that a lot of people like Dave Ramsey, Earn Your Leisure, they don't teach the exact same things. We recommend listening, and we don't give financial advice here, but we recommend listening to a lot of those different channels because they'll tell you things that you just don't know about the stock market, about debt. A lot of people just don't consider. So most people, I believe it's like 80% of people are living paycheck to paycheck. And that means a lot of you guys watching this are living paycheck to paycheck. So you may not ever had excess money. Thus, when you get it, you kind of just lose your mind. Like, you don't know what to do. You've never been a business owner, or if you have, it's really not been much capital that you're dealing with whenever you run your business. So how can we avoid some of these mistakes that other famous musicians have made? Let's look through the stories. #1 on our list is Meatloaf. So Meatloaf sold 43 million copies of their song Bat Out of Hell. And they, after they recorded this, he lost his voice. So at around the same time, his old producer decided to sue Meatloaf with over 40 lawsuits mounted against him. He had to file Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So what can we learn from that? Obviously, if you're getting sued that many times, you probably did something. Not to say that that's every single person who's getting lawsuits, but you probably did something. So one, whenever you're entering into deals with other musicians, even if it's your best friend, you guys are 17, 20, whatever, you're young, naive, you think, oh, this person's cool with me. They're always going to be cool with me. Doesn't really happen. You can be cool. You can work out the paperwork later. That can happen sometimes. However, what's the wise thing to do in that case? You're working with other musicians. You're in a band. You're working with this producer on that. Just get a piece of paper. There's docs online. There's a bunch of legal templates online. Just print one out, pay for one, whether it's a cheap one, a free one. There's free ones out there. But if you have to pay for one, just pay whatever little fee for it. Print it out. Everybody signs it. These were the terms. This was the term of this deal. Everybody agreed to this. Save that paperwork to your Google Doc, print it out, save it in a file, keep it in your house. And that way you avoid any future troubles. You don't want to build your music business. You don't want to go full-time in music and then get your butt sued off of you. And that's it. Like, everything you worked hard to build up, you end up paying in legal fees to some lawyer. You don't want all your money going to some lawyer when it should be, staying with you if you just had done your paperwork in the first place. Next one, Toni Braxton sold over 60 million records, has 7 Grammys, and she's had to declare bankruptcy twice. So not just once, but twice. What happened to her? Credit card bills and exorbitant monthly expenses were racking up in 1998. So what does that tell us? You can live outside your means, even if you think that you have enough money coming in. Sometimes people get so obsessed with this fancy lifestyle that even if you are making good money, you can still live above your means. So what's the key to long-term wealth? Let's really live. Nobody wants to hear it, but live below your means for a good amount of time. Whether that means you have to get roommates, even if you think, oh, I'm too good for a roommate, I'm too old for a roommate. Listen, whenever I was building my business, there wasn't a time I didn't have roommates. You hear Mark Cuban talk about this a bunch too. Like, why do people think that you shouldn't have? He had like 5 roommates. I had multiple roommates as well. But that's how you keep your expenses super low. So if you're in your 20s, your early 20s, your teens, your late teens, early 20s, even if you're in your late 20s and you're really serious about building a business, Dave Ramsey says, live like no one else so that later you can live and give like no one else. So just because everybody else thinks it's, oh, I'm 26 now, I shouldn't have roommates. Guess what? If you're serious about building your business and you want to cut your other costs and not live above your means, then you will do what it takes to get that done. While everybody else is out doing XYZ, you save your money, put that back into marketing. Put when you're building a business, the business needs a lot of capital to get started. Most things, 99.9% of things don't just take off like a rocket ship. You have to put in the capital, whether that's hiring people, marketing. Those are usually going to be two biggest expenses: hiring people and marketing. So whether that's giving more money to a manager so that they can do some other things to help out your music career when it's first starting, go to conferences, spend that money on promotion. You need them to be able to do those things. If you're going to be the one that stands out and is full-time in music, you need to invest in yourself, not spend that on other expenses. And by this time, Toni Braxton probably had a lot of money and she actually didn't need to go bankrupt, but is what it is. Next on our list, Ted Nugent used to sell out shows in America, which made him a bunch of money. However, one of his managers made some bad decisions with the money and put his assets into a failing business, which included a mink farm. And these forced him to declare bankruptcy in 1980. So if it's okay to take risk, but don't go, and none of this is financial advice, right? But this is just what I've seen personally in my business, growing my business over the last decade. It is okay to take some risks. In fact, you're not going to get paid a lot if you don't take risks. It's just calculated risk. So if you see like something risky that you want to go for, put aside a percentage that you test out first. Like even anybody who's done any sort of trading in the stock market or crypto market or whatever, you put in, and you have a discipline, you put in some to test out first and see how you're going to do. You don't just throw everything in and in the end end up bankrupt because you didn't make wise decisions with your money. So you want to take some risk. However, don't be stupid about it. Don't put everything into a risk. Whenever people are marketing their projects and they want to spend too much in one area, we tell them, hey, spread it out some. You can still be focused and spread out at the same time. So you can still put a lot into marketing and not put it into one platform. So that might be put some into Instagram, some into SEO, some into Google ads, some into Spotify playlisting, some into TikTok promotion. You calculate then which one's bringing you the best results, start to spend more of a percentage on that one. That's exactly what we do in our business. That's what a lot of businesses that last do in their businesses. Number 4 on the list, Marvin Gaye. Unfortunately, he had a hard upbringing, but he squandered his wealth on drugs, cars, and property. And also, he had to make payments to his ex-wife, and he was filing for bankruptcy after that. So, Marvin Gaye, legendary, one of the founders, the kings of R&B. Unfortunately, like if you don't get in control of vices, a lot of times we talk about this on our channel, but a lot of people try to push this lifestyle on, especially younger musicians, as, hey, these things that we're telling you to do are okay, or these things are going to free you. They try to call it sexual freedom, but in reality, it's a bondage. Like they're telling you these things that are not good for you long term. You're not actually free doing them. In the end, they will lead to desolation. You will not go free of ramifications if you follow that route. It may not happen in 5 years. It may not happen in 10 years. Eventually, it will catch up to you. All these things that people tell you to do, especially in the music business and the movie business, do all these things and you'll be free. Live your truth and things like that. News for you. There's one truth. If you want to deviate from it, then you can do that, but your life's not going to be free of the ramifications from it. Not to say that you may not go bankrupt like he did, but it will show up in other areas of your life. So that's our advice on that one. David Crosby, he also had some issues with drugs, concealed gun possession, and with that, he was forced to go bankrupt. So, like I said, this is a similar one. When they tell you there's nothing wrong with drugs and they push that in all these songs and they act like it's no big deal and they throw it on the big Spotify playlist, there is something wrong with it. There's, again, the same exact thing may not happen to you. It may show up somewhere else, but it will happen. Just take it to the bank. Something will happen that is not beneficial for you, even if you think that you're free doing this. MC Hammer, next up on our list. Hey, we don't talk about this one enough, but he owed back taxes to the IRS. So whenever you own a business, you want to set aside your money for taxes because it's not just you're not getting paid from an employer. You need to set aside the money and pay it manually. So I didn't know this whenever I first started my business. That's why I'm taking some time to tell you guys about it. It's super easy these days. You just go on government websites, click a couple buttons, and you pay your taxes. But if you don't know that, then you can get behind on your taxes. Now, thank God, I found out early enough that I didn't have too much in back taxes, but it was annoying, right? Like you had to go, if you had just been disciplined enough that as soon as you pay yourself from your music earnings, you just pay the taxes right then. So what I do, since I'm Christian, first thing I do is pay tithes, then pay my taxes. Just as soon as you get paid, as soon as you pay yourself, first things you do. If you don't, you will. There's been too many celebrities that get in trouble with back taxes to the IRS because they didn't pay them. And they just hired 87,000 IRS agents in the United States. What do you think that they're going to do? If you don't think they're coming after middle class and lower class people with all those new agents, I got news to tell you. They are. So get your taxes straight. Just pay them. What I do, some people do it quarterly, but just pay the taxes as soon as it touches your hand. That's my advice. That's what I do. Next up, we got Billy Joel. See what we can learn from him. His biggest thing was that he was letting somebody else manage his money completely. So it's okay to have people who help manage your money, but you need to be overlooking this. This is what happened with Steve Harvey too. Not a musician, but we'll throw him on the list. He was just giving somebody his money to pay his taxes. Yes, you should have a tax guy. You should have people helping you, but you need to make sure, like when you look in your bank statements, you see that this money went here. Not just I had my guy and he handled that. Like keep an eye on your money because you don't want it to be 10 years, 20 years down the line. You've been paying all these taxes and IRS suddenly hits you like, yo, you owe us millions of dollars or you owe us tens of thousands of dollars. You finally are full time in music. You're doing your thing. And then boom, that hits you and you don't have that money in the bank to pay those taxes. You don't want that to happen. All right, so we got a few more on our list, guys. We'll do a synopsis here. We see recurring themes, right? And I don't want this to ever happen to any of you guys once you go full time in music, or you're even working to get to full time. Don't want this to ever happen to you. So George Clinton quickly filed for bankruptcy while failing to mention his songs written from 1976 to 1983. So he essentially wasn't paying the taxes on that. So disclosing this material as a source of potential income would have potentially helped him regain nearly $100 million in royalties, but he never saw a dime of it. He denied his filing for bankruptcy, said it was a forged filing, and to this day he's actively fighting to retain his copyright. So it sounds like that was convoluted, actually, but if you just have your paperwork straight, you're paying your taxes, you avoid a lot of this. Next up, we got Isaac Hayes. His record label became insolvent, so mismanagement of funds. You want to have cash on hand. That's another thing I did want to say. Whenever you're running a business, have an emergency fund. You should have this in personal life and business life, but 3 to 6 months of expenses, you want to just have money in the bank so that something comes up, a pandemic happens, something happens, you have this money in the bank so that you're weathering that storm and you don't have to lay everybody off and go out of business. So that happened to a lot of businesses within these past 2 years. Uncomfortable reality, but if you just follow these principles, then you'll be able to at least help protect yourself from these things happening. Couple more, Willie Nelson. He lost his fortune because of back taxes. Again, the back tax is one that catches up with a lot of people. And we're not even going over every single musician this happens to. We're just highlighting key ones. And then lastly, Jerry Lee Lewis became ostracized when it came out that he was marrying a 13-year-old girl who was also his second cousin. So that backlash was instant. His career and record sales could not withstand that blow, as he should have gotten a blowback with that. Any attempt to normalize that type of stuff, not good. So he was millions in debt and filed for bankruptcy. So what do we learn from that? Don't do super duper crazy, weird, immoral stuff and think that people are just gonna think it's okay. A lot of people are learning that today. They're trying to sneak in weird stuff like this and finding that people will have a blowback against it. So word to the wise, don't do that one. So those are our words of wisdom today, y'all. Not everybody's favorite subject, but if you're a wise person, you made it to the end of this video and you actually take note of all the things you should avoid for that day that you're planning when you're full-time in music, you own a record label, you're doing your thing. Avoid all of these so that you can keep your wealth, you can keep your money, you can keep your career. If you don't, not to say that all these people didn't bounce back, some of them did, some of them did not. So don't take that chance. There's no need to take that chance. Leave us a comment with your thoughts on this. Anything else you think that people should be avoiding? Because I'm sure the wise will be reading these comments and try to avoid these things. They don't need to learn that lesson themselves. They'll just listen to wise commentary and avoid it, and hit that subscribe button. We'll catch you in the next video.